Hi guys, Marika here with another real-time coloring video. Merry Christmas everyone! This is actually going up on Christmas the 24th, which is the day that I celebrate Christmas. Here in Sweden we celebrate on the 24th. So, Merry Christmas! This is a real-time video, so I'm going to show you how I made Alpini, Polka Dot Alpini by Little Miss Muffet Stamps, into a polar bear. So I love doing this. I have chosen to print my little polka dot in a very light ink. All I've done is basically taken the image and then kind of reduce the opacity down to, I think it is like 30% or something. And then I have printed it on some Make It Crafty blending paper with my Epson Workforce and Dura-Bright ink. Dura-Bright ink actually works with your Copics. This I really love, the Epson and being able to use the Dura-Bright inks, because that means that not only can I get a very nice print, I can also get different colors if I want to. I actually printed some images in brown just when I got it, and it gave this really cool effect, and I'm hoping to be able to play around with those things a little bit more during 2017. So first I am sketching a face, because Polka Dot Pals, they are adorable, but they only have eyes, so you can either just color them as they are, or you can actually add faces. And this time around I decided I wanted to make a polar bear out of her. So I googled polar bear cub and I found this really adorable little polar bear. I was looking for a polar bear cub that had the face really frontal to make it much easier for me to kind of figure out the details. Also, when I did this, I actually started out by sketching this kind of little cub face onto just sketching paper or copy paper a couple of times to figure out how I wanted it to look. And it wasn't until I kind of figured that this is how I want it that I went back to the little Alpini and sketched the face on top of her face. I'm sketching with a normal mechanical pencils. I think this is like a Pilot mechanical lead pencil. Yeah, it is a Pilot. And it's 0.5 millimeters, the lead in it, so it's a little bit thinner. I really love using it when I'm sketching faces on these characters, because they have pretty small faces, so I need that kind of level of detail. And then the last thing before doing the line art, I'm actually going in with my kneadable eraser and lift up the lead that I don't want to. So I'm leaving a very thin outline, but the rest of it I've just lifted up. This is because Copics will lock in your pencils. So if you color with your Copics on top of your pencil marks and then try to erase, you will see that it is not possible. So I'm lifting up as much as I can, and then for the black details, kind of her eyelashes and also the mouth and the line around the nose, I'm using a 0.1 or a 0.1 Copic multiliner. The multiliner will be safe to use with your Copics, and I just love these. Usually when I work with a Polka Dot Pal, I'm using the 0.2 size, because they have kind of wide lines, but because I have printed her so lightly, I thought that going in with the 0.1 would work pretty good, and I would have really thin lines around her nose and such. And as you see, when I'm adding it, I'm using small lines after each other to kind of give that effect. So I don't do fully like one line stretches. And also this is the time when I'm actually letting the image move around, and this is because I want to have as crisp lines as possible. And for me, it is important to be able to come in from different angles. So then I'm moving it around. But when I'm coloring for you, I usually just tape it up and do it from one place. But that is a tip. If you don't get the quality image, move it around. Move it around, because you will have one direction when you color with a brush pen that will be, you will be a little bit better in one direction than another. I've been practicing this very, very long to do it with an image taped down, because I really wanted you to be able to see as good as possible what I'm doing. So now I'm going in and starting to kind of create a dimension in her face. And I decided that I wanted to use the E40s to make my polar bear. You can also use the light E50s, because they would make it more of a yellowish polar bear. And I think if you look at images of polar bear, there's something in between the E40s and the E50s. Here I kind of remembered that I've forgotten to add her ears, so I'm sketching in the ears. Here is where the no line part of the image works awesomely. I did actually a reindeer version of one of the Polka Dot Pals, and I was thinking about making a Christmas card with it, but I can't find the image, because I colored all of these images in the beginning of November, and I made the cards last week. So, but I can't find the image. But I'm thinking about actually making like a bonus real-time video here before the end of the year, so you can see me making that reindeer, because I really, really love that image and how it turned out. It was awesome. I really loved it. But yeah, I'm using the E40s, so I'm starting out with the E40 to kind of map out my shadows, because that is going to be my lightest color. I'm going also in with the colorless marker to kind of blend out the E40 towards the white in the paper, but I wouldn't be able to use that as my starter color because I wouldn't see it. So I started with the E40, and then I went in with the E41, and then I'm taking the darkest colors that I'm going to use, which is the E42, and going in the darkest shadows. And now for this image, and for the images I have done lately, I'm trying to go for a very light and soft color scheme. And one of the reasons is that they are no line images. So usually when you do really dark and sharp images, that black line kind of helps it come forward. But when you go for a softer image, I really, really love how I've used the softer print so that it can kind of just build with the colors. Also, by doing this in softer colors, I'm actually using less pencil or less markers, because then I want it to be as light as possible, basically. So I'm starting to fix her ears and her snout, and thinking about where the shadows would fall. I still have that bear image on the side, so I can see what kind of dimension I want to build in the little bear face. And that references is awesome, especially when you do something different like this. Using references is the best way to go. And the reason for that can be is that you won't have the images kind of in your head from the beginning. This was something it took me years to understand, because I've been taught since a very young age that you should draw from your mind. A true artist draws from their mind. But to be able to draw from your mind, you actually need to have seen a lot of things. And also you need to try things out by having references. Back in the day, a lot of people used live references. You went out, you sketched people on the train, on the cafe shops. People still do this. But today we have the opportunity to actually teach ourselves more and sketch more by actually going online and Google images and try it out that way. And for me, it would be, I would have had to go to a zoo that actually have polar bears. And I'm not 100% sure, but I actually think that we don't have that in Stockholm. So I would need to actually go on a road trip to find a zoo that actually have polar bears to be able to do this. So I'm really, really happy for the images that Google can present. If you are doing something commercially, you have to pay for a license to do this. But when you just do it for fun and you're not supposed to sell that, you can actually go on Google and just play around with it. Just a little afterthought about it. But yeah, now I'm going into her nose, and for my color schemes I want it to be a little bit grayish brownish, so I'm using the warm grays. This is what I'm going to use when I'm doing my gray/white parts on her clothes. I'm going to use the warm grays. So I also use the warm grays on her nose to kind of tie it all together. For her hair, I'm again using the E40s. But here's a little tip. The E40s that I used in her face, I was took very lightly with the E42. While when I'm doing her hair, I'm actually adding a little bit more of the E42, which actually will give the hair a little bit of contrast, and it will give the feeling that the hair is a slightly toned darker, even though I'm using the same pens. Also, the face have more white parts where I have blended them out with the colorless marker, while the hair is mostly blended out with the E40, and therefore you don't have as much dark lines or light lines, and therefore the hair will look a little bit darker. So you can get pretty cool effects from the same tones of pencils or markers. We are going to play around with some pencils at the end of this video because I'm adding a little bit of details for that. Then I'm going in and doing the little teddy bear, because little teddy bears should also be little polar bears, like mommy polar bear is going and pulling baby polar bear, or child polar bear is having her polar bear teddy bear with her, something like that. The reason why I chose a cub to sketch the face from is because of these images are cute and cuddly. By going for the child version of the animal that I'm looking at, I actually get it to look a little bit more cute and cuddly, because child versions of animals are always cute and cuddly and adorable. So yeah, and then I'm just going in with the E40s everywhere and just blending out. I did a very simple blending. I did leave a little bit of cast light on the bear, or yeah, light that comes not from the light source but from reflecting light, that was the word, on the bear, because I wanted him to pop a little bit because he's so adorable. Then we are going to play with all the fuzzies. Now there are different ways of doing fuzzies, and my kind of way of choice is doing this dot technique. However, a little bit later here on, either the end of this year or the beginning of next year, I will show you a way to do it with small curlicues. But here I'm doing it with dots, and when I'm doing it with dots, I'm doing the bigger ones and more intensive ones where the darker shadow should be, and then I'm going up with a lighter pen, and with a lighter pen I'm actually adding dots into the darker parts, but also kind of pulling out, making smaller and more sparse dots a little bit away to kind of build up a shadow likeness with the different colors to make it look like it is all furry and cool. And then I'm going in with the W00 for the lattice colors, and those are the pens I'm using for my grays. It's W3, W1 and W00. Might be adding a little bit of colorless blender, but I don't remember that right now. When I'm doing that kind of fuzzies, I actually usually go in with the colorless blender and adding on top of the edge. Those won't be seen unless the colorless blender won't be seen, but it will be seen where it overlaps on the lighter colors. So that's why I would go in with the colorless blender usually. And that will kind of soften the dots a little bit. I'm also going to use the W's on the little sleigh. Is it a sleigh? I think it's a sleigh. And on the little metallic pieces of the sleigh. I'm also actually adding it on the full part of the sleigh and doing a little bit shadow underneath the beer. Another little detail to kind of elevate the image is to add those little shadows here and there where you have cast shadows, and the little bear will cast a little bit of a shadow onto that little sleigh. I'm using a full grey, just the W3 on the parts where they glide. I probably know the word, but not right now. But on the parts they glide, I'm using just the W3 because they're so small, I don't need to really shadow them. And then I'm just blending out with the W1 on the cast shadow and on the shoes and on the stripes. And yeah, to finish it off, I'm going in with the W00. This is such a light pen that I usually don't really blend it with the colorless blender. But in this case, I actually wanted the lines to be grey and not so much white. So the puffiness is a little bit white, but not the rest of it. And yeah, I remembered I needed to color the nose and the eye, and I'm using the W5 for that to keep him a little bit softer. And then we are going to go in and do the rest of the coloring, and I'm actually coloring her in greens. I think I have her colored in purples somewhere. If it's just a card on my blog, or if I actually have a video on it. I don't remember, but I know that I have colored her in purples. But this time I'm going in the greens. And these are the same greens I've been using throughout here, the days that I've been coloring, or the videos that have been coming out. And this is because these images were all colored during the November 30-day coloring challenge, which I basically think I went up to day 10 or something, and then my health took a turn to the worse, and that's why I haven't been making videos basically. But because I was coloring around the same time, a lot of them have a very similar color scheme. This is usually how I work in periods, is that I love kind of playing around with the same colors, kind of learning about them. So therefore I usually have a bunch of videos or cards with the same color scheme. I think I'm going to try to do this as I did in November, where I did a couple of coloring for a week and then later on making cards of them, because that will kind of make the possibility of mixing and matching later on. So then as you see here with the G40, when I tried the first time, I went in, I did the coloring, and then I had to put another layer on because the G40 is a little bit too light to blend. It's just slightly too light to blend. So when I went the other time around, I'm actually coloring the G40 on top of the parts that is going to be the light green, because then that will get a double layer of a color, because it will have time to kind of sink into the paper and kind of dry. And when you do several layers on top of each other, because these colors are a little bit translucent, they will actually build on top of each other and end up with a darker color. So this is why I actually mapped out all the colors. So that is also a tip from me when it comes to coloring. If you want to have very, very light color scheme, try to only go from dark to light to keep that lightness in the colors. While if you want to have a deeper color of the lighter colors and also get a little bit of a darker version of them, then you can start with the lightest color and kind of map that out. And then when I started out coloring, I usually went from light to mid-tone to light, and then I added the dark tone, the mid-tone, the light. So I had a much bigger depth in the colors, but in that way, when I was afraid of how to shade, I could do it in stages. While now, when I've been coloring for a whole bunch of years, I'm not as afraid of putting down my shadows. So I usually start with the darkest color so that I go from dark to light. This saves time, but it also makes the color scheme a little bit lighter. But once in a while I do, like I did today, and kind of just base out all of the parts that I want to color with the lightest color to give that a little bit extra depth. So here I'm going in with the lightest color once again, and now you see how much deeper that color gets and how much better it actually blends together with the G43, I think it is. So it's G24, G43 and G40 for the green tones. I also found that I have missed a little bit of the W there. Now for the rest of the image, I'm going in with a darker green, and I wanted it to be very tone in tone. So the darkest color that or the lightest color I'm using is actually the darkest color from the before. So I'm using the G24. And you will see here that the G24 is much darker, just one layer is much darker than in the blending. And this is because when you go over a dark tone with a lighter pen, that darker pen will lighten because you will be pushing those pigments deeper down in the paper. So in this case, I'm again going in with the G24 as a base coat because I want it to be even deeper when I'm going over it once again. Then I'm going in with my G28 and I'm doing a very, very light shading here. I kind of just ignored the pom-poms and just added some depth in it, so they won't look like proper pom-poms the way I have shaded them, but I kind of like the way. I'm using the G46 as a mid-tone and then the 24 again for the lightest color. And as you see, I used the G40 and 43 together with the 24 for the lighter, and then I'm going in with the 46 with the 24 and 28 as the darker. So I'm keeping the same kind of tonal in the greens, and by mixing two different families, I actually get a bigger range of colors so that I can get this kind of tone on tone but with lighter tones. There are some colors you can do that without mixing the families, like the G40s that have a whole bunch of browns ranging from 49 down to 40, and there you can actually get this tone on tone with the lighter and the darker. You can actually get 3 different packages of that just using the 40s. But here with these 20s and the 40s in the green tones, they don't have that much range. So then by mixing them together, you get a better range. And also you get a better blend because the 46 is pretty dark, so it's hard to mix with the 43 and the 40 because it's a bigger step. And again, the 24 and the 28 have a huge step. I think there is a 26 in between, but I kind of liked having the 46 in between here. I'm just telling you a lot of numbers. I hope you like this. I hope you don't get bored. for me just talking about this. But anyhow, the rest of the image will be colored in these greens. So I'm starting off by base coding her coat with my G24 again, to keep that kind of depth in the green, because I don't want the shadows on the light green to have exactly the same shade as the lightest in the dark green, because that can cause issues where shadows and light meet, and you will not see differences in the clothing. So that is why I'm keeping that 24 in 2 layers. And here you also see that on her little sleeve here, I'm actually not going out all the way out to the edge, almost out to the edge, but not always all the way out to the edge. This is because I want to have a little delimiter of light between her arm and the kind of end of the dress, so it looks like I have a little bit of a cast light, and that will kind of show a little bit more dimension, and you will see the arm a little bit better towards the other parts of the green. And then I'm just I did the same thing with the hood on her shirt, which you also can look at. That is a little bit of a white line where the sleeve meets the hood, and I'm doing that to give that little bit of extra dimension, just that you can see that that is a separate sleeve, because without the lines, those kind of details are a little bit more important, so that it just don't look like a green blob. And then I'm going in and doing the last part of the coloring for this image, which is the kind of Christmas hat for the teddy bear. And here's another, like, this is not a traditional color scheme. It's not red and green. It's green, which you could say was a traditional Christmas color, but I don't have the red and green together, but I still see this as a Christmas card. Sadly, I didn't have the possibility to send out any Christmas card this year, but hopefully next year. Now I'm going to go in and do the finer details. So I'm going in with my polychromos. I haven't written up which pens I'm using. Yeah, I forgot my eye. So I'm going to use the 40s for the eyes to kind of tie in. So you're getting very dark brown eyes. And this is because the polar bears that I saw had very dark brown eyes. The images that I googled. So I thought I used that. But then I'm going to go in with the polychromos. Now I think I used the nougat, the ivory, and then I used some warm grays. I think those were the colors I used. I didn't write them up, and apparently I didn't show the pens to the camera, because when I cut this, I'm just changing pens as I go. So first I'm going in with the cream to add like white lines details. I have very sharp pens, so I get very thin lines, and I'm doing this to kind of get it looked like she has a hairy face, to give it fur detail. So I'm going in with different grays. I think that's a sepia actually, either a warm gray or a sepia. And I'm just doing small lines going from dark to light to dark to light to light to dark, back and forth until the kind of detailing is how I want it. I'm not adding details on the whole image. It's just the fur detail on her face that I'm really trying, and then I'm actually going on and doing a little bit of shading on my little teddy that she's pulling. This is where the reference for the image also for me was very important. I'm really looking on in which direction the fur is going, in the ears, on the face, and trying to kind of build up those shades with the direction that is on the image, so that I can see how the fur falls on the image. Then I'm adding some white lines to kind of build up and make it a little bit lighter. And usually when you look at pictures of animals, they have like small white lines everywhere, and that is the kind of white lines I'm using with the white line pen. And then I'm doing some gray shading, but I'm doing it very liney, so it also looks like he has some fur on him. So it's not a round fur, more like a stripy fur. It's not round curls on the fur, it's just a stripy fur on both of them. And then I'm adding some white to his eyes and his nose. I'm actually going over with a white gel pen in the end because I didn't like the amount of white I got from the polychromos. So now I'm just adding a little bit of white, and that was the full image, the whole colored image. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, please thumbs it up. It means a lot to me. If you have any questions, just comment down below, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye.